Welcome to the Saturday Cadence Podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence Podcast is the heartbeat of college football.
When I saw Jack Sawyer beat Cam Williams off the edge, I knew that it was over. And then Quinn Ewers fumbled. It was a strip sack. Jack Sawyer sprinting down the sideline. The entire Ohio State sideline is just jumping in complete jubilation. All the fans, whether in the stadium or in their homes, everyone having the exact same freeing reaction there, cements himself as a legend in Columbus. He is forever a legend as a Buckeye. Jack Sawyer is. And what a semifinal that was between Ohio State and Texas, as well as between Notre Dame and Penn State. So welcome into Saturday Cadence. I'm your host, Blake Biscardi, for our recap episode of the College Football Playoff semifinals as we set up a national championship game between the two largest alumni bases and fan bases in the sport. We've got Ohio State and Notre Dame, January 20th, 7:30 in Atlanta for all the marbles. It is the national championship game. It should be a ratings bonanza, but let's talk about how we got there. We're going to start in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl with Ohio State and Texas. This was an instant classic. And this game was an instant classic for different reasons than the Orange Bowl was a classic on Thursday night. Now, the Buckeyes and Longhorns exchanged punches throughout the game. Now, Ohio State goes right down the field, scores. It's up 7-0, and then pretty much lost a lot of their mojo after that. They kept committing penalties, a lot of it self-inflicted for the Buckeyes, so they couldn't really get going. Finally, Texas musters up a drive to go down the field. They score a touchdown to the running back right before the half. Now, less than 30 seconds to go, and Ohio State comes out, and, you've got time, you've got timeouts, you may as well try. So they run a screen. Travion Henderson catches the ball in the backfield. He's got 3 offensive linemen blocking downfield, and he was just shot out of a cannon. He reminded everybody why he is probably the fastest running back in college football. 75 yards later, touchdown Buckeyes. It is 14-7 heading into the half, a complete momentum change there for Ohio State. And then, again, the third quarter, the Buckeyes more self-inflicted wounds there. Texas gets the ball, finally scores another touchdown. This game is tied heading into the fourth quarter. And as we began the fourth quarter, Ohio State gets the ball deep in its own territory, musters up nearly an 8-minute drive that spanned 13 plays and 88 yards. They get into the end zone. Now, Texas has the ball back, and I know I'm building all this up in recap format, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the specifics of how the players played, MVPs, and all that kinds of stuff, matchups. But Texas is driving down the field. Now there's less than 3 minutes to go, and that's where that play sets up for Jack Sawyer. But how we got there was Texas gets into the red zone. Now they've got 1st and 10, but it's not quite a goal-to-go situation yet. They can still get the first down. And so they get to a 3rd down. Then there's a defensive pass interference called in the end zone, ball placed at the 2. Then there's another defensive pass interference called, ball's now at the 1. Now it's 1st and goal at the 1. Texas tries it up the middle, does not get there. 2nd down here, they run a toss to the left side of the field. Caleb Downs shoots the gap, tackles him for a loss. Lathan Ransom cleans him up along with a couple other Buckeyes. Now, there's been a lot of talk out there that was a terrible play call. It wasn't a smart decision. And honestly, if you look at it, I just don't think that it was smart to call that play against a defense like Ohio State that has 2 safeties that get downhill, and one of them with the name of Caleb Downs, who has the best instincts probably in the sport right now. Lathan Ransom, though, not to shake a stick at there. He is a phenomenal player. He's one of the seniors for Ohio State. Those two have been so good all year, and they motioned the tight end over. Well, Lathan Ransom followed. He didn't just stay home on the outside there. Sonny Styles was lined up outside of Jack Sawyer, but Caleb Downs was just sitting there. He shoots his gap, trips him up, and now you're setting up 3rd down from about the 8-yard line. Jack Sawyer tipped pass. Now you're at 4th and goal, and that was the play. Jack Sawyer just shoots by Cam Williams. I mean, he never even had a chance, and there he goes. His former roommate, Quinn Ewers, just standing there, helpless. Bang. Jack Sawyer hits him. Ball comes out, bounces right into his hands. It was like something out of a movie. That moment, Jack Sawyer returns it for a touchdown, a scoop and score, ices the game for the Buckeyes 28-14. It looked like a movie script. You make the final 2 plays of the game defensively on that series for your team. One's a tipped pass, another one you get to strip sack your former roommate after he transferred. And again, there's no bad blood between the two, but Jack Sawyer had to play against Michigan. He had an interception in the same thing. It was a goal to go situation. And it got lost because the Buckeyes couldn't close out the game. They couldn't win it. The offense had a chance and they couldn't do it. And that was supposed to be his legacy play. It was supposed to be his, we got to build him a statue play. And no one really remembers it because the impact it had on the game, massive, but it didn't decide the outcome. It didn't do what this play did. And, we're talking about this off air, and it was, like I said in the opener, complete a moment of jubilation for Ohio State fans who have won a national championship 10 years ago, but since then, there's not been a lot of postseason highs for the Buckeyes outside of a couple of Rose Bowl wins, a Fiesta Bowl win. I mean, there's not a ton where you're sitting there in terms of the college football playoff. They've got the win over Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, but there's a gut-wrenching loss to Clemson in 2019 after Chris Olave and Justin Fields have a miscommunication. The ball's intercepted. Clemson goes and plays the national championship against Joe Burrow and LSU. Then 2020 national championship game with COVID against Alabama. And then 2021, you lose to Michigan for the first time. It affects your postseason. You go to the Rose Bowl again. Great game against Utah. But 2022, that's the game against Georgia. Heartbreak with the field goal. All Ohio State fans had really felt in a championship setting was pain. And that play by Jack Sawyer, it cements him as a legend. For one, especially if the Buckeyes go on to win next Monday night, it just felt so freeing. It felt like they finally, and this is the first time this has really happened in this style game under Ryan Day in the championship setting, where the offense did what it needed to do late, and so did the defense. Because before it was either the offense did enough and the defense let us score, or the offense couldn't do enough when the defense did. And they finally got over that game. They closed it late. They had a tough 8-minute drive to go take the lead. And Texas goes right down the field. And the Buckeyes 3 feet away from a tie game. The Buckeyes defend it. Jack Sawyer said in his post-game interview, Jim Knowles has mentioned it this year. It's kind of that cliche joke where if you give us an inch, we'll defend it. Well, for the 5th time this year, they had a goal line stand in a massive spot. Oregon, Penn State, Nebraska, Michigan, now Texas, a goal line stand for this Ohio State defense. This has the potential to be the greatest defense in Buckeye history, potentially getting close to the best defense in college football history with what they keep doing. They keep coming up in big spots. But that play by Jack Sawyer, it could not have happened to a better Buckeye. No one is more deserving than that play. I was just talking about that play against Michigan that's getting lost and how, that was supposed to be the one that lived forever. It was the game-changing play. No. Well, he gets the redemption shot against Texas. And there it was. He is the kid. Ohio State recruits nationally now, but Jack Sawyer is the kid that grew up outside of Columbus. He grew up in Pickerington proud, and he rooted for the Buckeyes. He wanted to be a Buckeye. He was Ryan Day's first recruit. Jack Sawyer embodies everything that it means to wear the scarlet and gray, represent Ohio State, and be a Buckeye. And it was so fitting for him to send his team to the national championship for the first time since 2020. And you're looking at this, everything that's played out for Ohio State in this season, this 12-team format now, close loss to Oregon, gut-wrenching loss to Michigan, which has really probably propelled this run for the Buckeyes, that shot at redemption here where it's an expanded field, you get a second shot at life, and they have completely maximized that now, having one more game to go and do it. And this one is going to be against Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a phenomenal defense. Marcus Freeman has them playing as one of the most disciplined and physical teams in the country. Their special teams are among the best in the sport, probably the best. So Ohio State will have its hands full. Don't be fooled by that 9.5-point spread. That is a good Notre Dame team, and they are well coached and they're disciplined and focused. And we'll get more into that when we do our preview show later in the week. But for the Buckeyes, I mean, this was a phenomenal performance when you talk about coming up big in those key spots. Now, there were times Ohio State did not play its cleanest game by any stretch of the imagination. They went right down the field, looked great on the first drive. The second drive, they're driving again, looking to blow this thing wide open, 14-0 right away. And there's a big penalty by Travion Henderson. And then you have the next drive, another penalty, and then another penalty. Ohio State, I think they said it where it was 7 drives the Buckeyes had where they had a chance to go up 2 scores and just couldn't do it because of a penalty. It wasn't the cleanest game by the Buckeyes, but in the moments they had to respond, they did. And that was the biggest takeaway from the game. It wasn't the best game by Ohio State, but when they had to respond at the end of the first half, after Texas goes and scores that touchdown, and you're thinking, I don't know if they're going to have enough. I mean, they just shot themselves in the foot for the entire first half after that first drive. And now it's a tie game, and you're clearly outplaying your opponent. But here we are tied. Well, Travion Henderson shoots out of a cannon, scores a 75-yard touchdown. You're up by 7. And then again, the offense goes down the field. Texas right down the field. Ohio State took 8 minutes to do it. Texas flew into the red zone. They were down there within 3 minutes. And you see that moment where now there's 2 defensive pass interference penalties called. And I know one of them moved the ball to 2, the other one only moved it a yard, but that's a big yard. Texas could have run the ball 4 straight plays. They did not because they respect the Ohio State defensive line, and rightly so because they got the stop. But the Buckeyes responded in that moment, and they got the stop. And that was the thing that everyone had been waiting on, because you're watching the game and you're saying, all right, not playing our best game, but we're winning. Okay, not nervous. And then you're thinking, I've seen this movie before. They're going to go score. This is just how it has gone for the last so many years. No, Jack Sawyer and that defense said not today. And they clinch a berth in the national championship game. So congratulations to the Buckeyes, to Ryan Day. I mean, the reactions and the emotion that he showed on the sidelines, the ones that the players have showed, everyone their post-game interview, thanking the Lord. I mean, you see this team and how much they love playing for each other, how much they love playing for this coaching staff, how much they love playing for Ryan Day and each other. And Abuka said it in his pregame speeches, that wasn't the last day he was going to be in that jersey. His last day was going to be on January 20th, and it is. Ohio State has been fighting in this entire college football playoff for one more game in that scarlet and gray jersey, and they've gotten the one more game. They got the second game, then they got the third game. Well, this is that last one more game that they can have, and they've got it against Notre Dame. I thought Will Howard played great outside of the one play. They tried to force the ball to Jeremiah Smith, who was largely taken away for the entire contest there, only the one catch for 3 yards, which, if you stayed tuned to our predictions, that article comes out late in the week. I told you in the prediction, I said, and again, this is not just me saying I got to take all critics. I'm the only one that saw it. It was widely speculated Texas was going to run bracket coverage. But the part that I wanted to share was, sure, that was in my prediction that Jeremiah Smith would be taken away in bracket coverage. He had a corner with safety help the entire night. But I said Travion Henderson and G. Scott would be more heavily involved in the passing game. It'll open up lanes for Carnell Tate and Emeka Ibuka, which it did. But then Quinshon Judkins will get the bulk of the carries on the ground. And that was exactly the game plan by Ohio State and how that played out. Because if you look at it, Carnell Tate led all pass catchers with 7 receptions and 87 yards, did not have a touchdown. He dropped one on the opening drive, but Ohio State did punctuate that drive with a Quinshon Judkins score, ran very hard. Then you had Travion Henderson with a 75-yard touchdown reception. Ibuka played great, all reliable, 5 catches, 51 yards. G. Scott, he had the play on that long drive for Ohio State on 3rd and 9. This was a 3rd and 4 false start penalty, which, again, we told you Ohio State kept having these. It pushed him back. Well, G. Scott got hit about 6 or 7 yards before the first down marker, and he fought 2 defenders for extra yards to get it to a 4th and 2. If he didn't do that, Ohio State may have punted the ball, and we may be looking at a different outcome. But that'll be the unsung play of the game there by G. Scott, setting up the 4th and 2, which was the Will Howard keeper right up the middle. They hadn't run him all game. Perfect time to call it. It was wide open. He gets there. Turf Monster gets him so he doesn't score, but he got enough yards there, and Ohio State later did cap that drive with the touchdown. So, like we said, those were all the ways. Jeremiah Smith could have been a decoy in that game. We'll see if he has more opportunities against Notre Dame, but it's going to be hard to keep him quiet. But again, this was a styles make fights, and the way these two teams matched up against each other, it was pretty even across the board. I mean, you're splitting hairs to figure out which team is having the advantage in this category or that category. Talent was pretty even. We've said this: Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, those are your three most talented rosters in the country. This game right here had the most NFL prospects in the country. Oregon's got a lot of speed. They've got great talent on there. But Ohio State and Texas, man, that was like watching two NFL teams play when you saw those guys of current guys who are going to go to the draft this year, who are either juniors or seniors. You see the guys who are younger, like a Caleb Downs or a Jeremiah Smith. You see guys like a Ryan Wingo, all of them, Arch Manning. They're going to be really, really good players. And it was completely a spectacle. It lived up to the hype. It had that phenomenal storybook ending. And you're thinking back with, is this the most impactful play in Ohio State history? And, I'm kind of on the fence at it with Ezekiel Elliott's 85-yard run. You have Curtis Samuel's run in double overtime. You have the Holy Buckeye, Claret stripping the play in Sean Taylor in the national championship game in 2002. I mean, there's lots of plays that you can think of in Ohio State lore. And if we boiled it down to this modern era, where does it outdo the Ezekiel Elliott play, where he ran 85 yards to the heart of the South against Alabama? I thought that it didn't. I thought it was close second, but then David raised a good point where he said it does, because Ohio State had the ball and they were up by 7. Texas was going to score the game tying touchdown right there and tie it. And Jack Sawyer stripped it and put the Buckeyes up by 2 touchdowns. The ensuing possession, Caleb Downs completely iced the game with the interception where it put the offense back on the field to take a knee. But I think that it is the most impactful play in modern Ohio State history, maybe even all of Ohio State history. If they go and win the national championship, it can reach that height. But again, no one more deserving than Jack Sawyer in that moment, in that spot. And Ryan Day and Will Howard, the way that this team has come together, everything that they stand for, what they've had to respond against, the run that they have had in this postseason, taking on Tennessee at home and winning that game in a blowout, then taking on Oregon in the Rose Bowl, that the quote unquote revenge factor, just blowing the doors off the Ducks 34-0 to start, and then eventually winning that game by 20. Ohio State has beaten the number 1 team in the country, the number 3 team in the country, the number 4 team in the country, the number 7 team in the country, and the number 8 team in the country. And they play the number 5 team in the country. So think about that one. Crazy. So what a run for the Buckeyes in this college football playoff. But now let's go discuss the Orange Bowl between Notre Dame and Penn State. Now, this game was ugly. It was a defensive battle. The fourth quarter, we saw lots of fireworks, 31 points scored in the fourth quarter. So that is when the game really got going. Before that, very quiet, 10-10 tie. Okay. Notre Dame opened as a slight favorite. Penn State closes a slight favorite, both 1.5 on both ends. Penn State had multiple opportunities to win the game, and Drew Aller was not able to win the game with his arm. Now, could Penn State have kept running the football and won the game that way? Potentially, but Notre Dame's defense is so stout. It's just difficult to do. And the thing for me in this spot where Notre Dame wins, and yes, Notre Dame deserved to win the game. Penn State, you're in a national semifinal, and I had as many catches as your wide receiving core. You listening had as many catches as Penn State's wide receiving core. Penn State's wide receivers caught 0 passes for 0 yards and 0 touchdowns in this game. They threw the ball to 3 tight ends and 2 running backs. That cannot happen in a national semifinal when you are a top team. It can't happen. How are you going to go into a national semifinal? I get Notre Dame's pass defense is really good, but you are going to sit here and tell me that Harrison Wallace and Julian Fleming and all these other wide receivers that you've got. Now, I know Penn State's wide receivers don't jump off the page at you. They've been the weakness of the Nittany Lions offense for some years now, but you're telling me not one reception? That was a thing that was so tough for me, was you can't just win a game with tight ends and running backs in the throw game. It's just not how that's going to work. It's hard to run the football, but they were having success doing it. Nick Singleton carried the ball 15 times for 84 yards. Kaytron Allen, 19 carries for 82 yards. Singleton had the 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's tough sledding in this game, which we knew going into that game. Yards are at a premium, points are at a premium. Everything is at a premium. You can't turn the football over. Got to take care of the football. And in the biggest spot of the game, Jureller had 2 interceptions that were called back by penalties, which one of them, sure, the second one, a little chip because it's an underthrown ball. I don't like that it's officiated that way, but again, you're making contact with the receiver. So by rule, it should have been called, and it was. But then you throw the ball over the middle. He's like, I was trying to dirt it. You never try to dirt a football over the middle of the field in a tight spot like that. Throw it away, do something beside that. And Notre Dame comes away with a big interception after they also threw a pick. So nobody really wanted to win that football game late there. It was sitting there tied. Who's going to get the game-winning field goal? Will it be a game-winning touchdown? Penn State goes right down the field answering. Then Notre Dame, the Penn State corner slips, and Notre Dame throws a touchdown. And you're thinking, what in the world has happened in this fourth quarter? And then all of a sudden, nobody wanted to win the game. It was points, 28 points, just back and forth in the fourth quarter. And then no one wanted to win it with the last 5 minutes. No one wanted to do it. And finally, Drew throws another interception. This one actually counts. Phenomenal play by Christian Gray. And Notre Dame is set up. They get into field goal range. And then they kick the field goal and they win the game. And Penn State comes out in a field goal safe. Who is running a fake field goal in that spot? No one is going to run a fake field goal in that spot. I would have put all 11 guys, load up one side, probably your left, and try to block the kick. No one is faking a field goal to win a game in that spot. That ball was definitely getting kicked. And Notre Dame kicks the field goal. It goes in, and that was it. The ball game was over. Notre Dame wins. And we questioned in the matchup. We did. We said, can Riley Leonard win the game with his arm? And that's what he did. I know he had the 2 interceptions. Penn State had opportunities to win the football game, and most of those yards are going to come on the one play where the defender fell. But Riley Leonard was able to, when moments mattered, win the game with his arm. He threw for 223 yards. He was 15 of 23 and a touchdown. Jeremiah Love, also, that physical run that he had to get into the end zone there late, where it looked like he should have been stopped at the 4, then the 3, then the 2, then the 1, and then finally somehow emerged into the end zone. Abdul Carter goes by, kind of goes for the ball instead of the tackle. Wasn't his best angle or play on the ball, but still there were other Penn State defenders there. Just on muscles and wills his way into the end zone. And when you see plays like that, you see the fight like that from those guys. They embody what Notre Dame is as a team. That's their culture. They are tough. They are disciplined. They are gritty. They play stout defense, and they do enough on offense, and they are physical. Now, they've got some injuries, and they have been decimated by them, but they have still been able to muster together 13 straight wins. They're sitting at 14-1. Marcus Freeman gets this team to a national championship game, something Brian Kelly and Notre Dame fans and national media thought was not going to be possible for Notre Dame in this playoff era and in this expanded playoff era. They will never get to the national championship. They couldn't win that many games in a row. Well, they've beaten a Big Ten team, they've beaten an SEC team, and then they've beaten another Big Ten team. And then they face a third Big Ten team in the national championship game. So that result yet to be determined. But Notre Dame is there, and he's done more. Marcus Freeman in 3 years has done more than Brian Kelly has in his career in terms of national prominence, in terms of elevating recruiting, in terms of having that culture with the players, the way that he does and how much these guys love playing for him. And you can see Marcus Freeman, he just turned 39 years old, one of the bright, young, masterful coaches in college football with an extremely bright future and long career ahead of him. Surely, however long he stays at Notre Dame or wherever he will go next, he is going to have success because of his philosophy. He played for one of the great coaches of our generation, and Jim Tressel, and you can see that when he coaches, but he also has his own way that he likes to do things. This team is so disciplined and physical, and do not, again, be confused with that 9.5 number. That's a great football team out there, and I think we are in for an absolute treat on January 20th between Ohio State and Notre Dame. These two teams have played the last 2 years in a row. The game ended with 10 men on the field last year for Notre Dame, where Ohio State ran the ball in as clock expired. They win the game 17-14. And I mean, Notre Dame is stewed on that. So Will they be able to get their revenge? This might be the first time in this playoff that the internal motivation for the game is for the other team and for Ohio State, because their backs were against the wall against Tennessee, and then they had the revenge aspect against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, and then you had playing Texas. Can you get over the hump? Can you beat the SEC team? Can you continue it? They did it. They've answered the bell. They've got one more. Both teams, one more. This is going to be an absolute treat. January 20th. Cannot wait for that one. We're going to have more for you on the game in the preview this week. We're going to have tons of content on the socials. Make sure that you're staying tuned there at Saturday Cadence, at T-Silver Bulletin, tsilverbulletin.com for more of our written content. We're going to have more predictions. We're going to elaborate on that. The full staff will be involved. So tons of content all week long. Make sure that you are staying tuned. I appreciate you listening to today's episode. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to the channel. Continue to share. Socials have been going crazy. Subscribers have been going crazy. The channel's really taken off over this playoff stretch here. So we appreciate all of you guys for doing that. Leave that review. Again, share the show. We appreciate you guys listening. Enjoy this week. We're going to have more content for you, so stay tuned to that. And we'll see you for the national championship game. It's going to be a good one. Appreciate you listening to today's episode, and we will see you next time. God bless.